Tonight on World News, going for broke, a brand new risky gambit to fix the oil leak. And we take you into the underwater mess again. Good evening, back from the Gulf, and we begin tonight with the latest big roll of the dice by the oil company BP. It could start as early as dawn tomorrow. It's called the Top Kill, and I'll describe it in a moment. But first, take a look at these two pictures making news tonight. The oil coming out of the pipe seems to have changed. On the left, 2 weeks ago, it was lighter, more natural gas. But tonight, as you can see there on the right, it is darker, denser, and we're told getting worse, even more polluting than before. President Obama will head to the Gulf on Friday. But what about tomorrow morning's gamble called the Top Kill? Well, here's what they're going to try. Hoses will pump drilling fluid so thick it's like mud down the 1-mile pipe to the leak. After that, cement. So we want to bring in Ryan Owens to tell us how soon we'll know if this one works, Ryan, and what is the risk if it doesn't?
Good evening to you, Diane. We should have a pretty good idea by this time tomorrow night. And there are, believe me, millions of people along the Gulf Coast hoping and praying that this one will work. Under the best case scenario, if they start the Top Kill at dawn, there could be no more oil gushing from this pipe by tomorrow night. Hundreds of engineers at BP command centers across the Gulf region will be watching with those underwater cameras and closely monitoring pressure gauges. They should know fairly quickly if the heavy mud is forcing the oil down and whether they can add that concrete. It's a long way from a sure thing, and even BP's chronically optimistic executives know it.
We rate the probability of success of somewhere between 60 and 70%.
Top kills have been successful on land in places like Iraq and Kuwait, and in shallow water, but have never been tried a mile down where the pressure is relentless. Then the worst case scenario. Scientists warn if it doesn't work, shooting all of that mud and concrete could further damage the blowout preventer, and that could cause an even larger leak.
By imposing a high pressure, we may actually cause the flow rate to increase instead of decreasing.
We told you a lot of engineers will be watching. The question is, will you be able to watch? Earlier today, one congressman told us that BP executives told him they would be pulling the plug on that live feed as soon as they started the Top Kill. We talked to BP today, and they said they haven't quite made up their mind what they're going to do. Diane?
And they'd pull the plug because?
They say that they have to balance, they have bigger things to worry about and not showing us on television. Of course, that outraged a lot of people, though, who think we ought to be able to see this as it goes down.
All right, well, we could have news on this front tomorrow night, as you said, but we don't know still how much oil is spewing into the water. On the PBS.com website, you can see, though, how quickly the amount is going higher and higher and higher and higher, whatever numbers you program in. And our Sam Champion put on his diving suit and went 25 miles offshore and 20 feet down to show us what that chemical dispersant is doing to the oil. And he's here tonight. Sam.
Good evening, Diane. And today, the EPA told BP they could continue to use that chemical dispersant Corexit on top of the spill. There was no information available to us about what would happen when Corexit mixed with the oil on top or under the Gulf, so we dove in to find out.
What looks like thin ribbons of oil from the surface of the water is so much more disturbing underneath.
Oh my God. It's thick orange.
The Gulf's crystal blue waters are now filled with these massive dark storm clouds of oil and chemical sludge. Globs of sticky oil being broken up and pulled down into plumes running more than 25 feet deep, where they are then dragged in different directions by the Gulf's currents.
You know, the Gulf of Mexico isn't a bathtub. It has a super complex system of currents going all through it. And to think that it's carrying hundreds and hundreds of miles of this kind of goopy, thick muck floating in the water, just as far as I can see.
Philippe Cousteau is the chief ocean correspondent for Planet Green.
A lot of people are saying that when you apply the chemical dispersion, you know, it disappears. The oil goes away. But here we go right now. This is evidence that doesn't happen.
Scientists tell us these large plumes represent the great unknown. There are no studies showing what the hundreds of thousands of gallons of Corexit dispersant being pumped into the oil leak below the surface and sprayed from above will do over time. What we do know is that experts were so concerned about our exposure to the chemicals, we were not allowed to go into the water with any skin exposed. So we donned rubber industrial hazmat dry suits and 30-pound hard hats rigged with underwater cameras before we got into the Gulf.
That is coming straight over us, headed straight for us. The consistency is unlike anything I've ever seen. You can imagine any fish or any critters coming through this would just be covered in it.
Sam, this is what's scary. We haven't done the science. We weren't prepared for this kind of a disaster.
And Sam, so many people when I was down there kept saying to me, how long are these droplets mixed with the dispersant going to last? Are they going to last on the bottom of the ocean? How long?
Diana, that's the frightening part. No one knows because we've never really, that we're aware of, ever studied that exact question. What I can tell you is every spill we've ever looked at on the planet that we've been available to get information on, what we know about oil is it exists forever until it's cleaned up. Diane?
All right, Sam, well, thank you. And later on in the broadcast, as I said, I'm going to bring you a stunning message from a family I met with in the Gulf who have lost so much.